And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show First Look Edition, Tuesday, June 3rd. I almost had the month right. Slightly different. Tuesday, June 3rd. We're 2 days away from Game 1 of the NBA Finals. And I, Josh Engleman, am here to take a first look at what this game and what this series could potentially look like. This is less about DFS and more about a holistic look. We'll talk a little bit about the DFS side. We'll talk a little bit about the betting side. We'll talk about these teams. This is not a place where we're going to have full takeaways when it comes to what we want to do on Thursday and for the rest of this. But we need to understand, this is a new series now. You know, we got to start from scratch. The matchups are different. The rotations could be a little bit different, and we kind of just need to dig in and think, where are all these guys going to be? Who's going to get more minutes? Who's going to get less minutes? What kind of angle can we find for Game 1 and beyond? So if you're here, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman. We got a lot to look at. Right now, I have the first run of projections and ownership up. Please don't dig into this data with any sort of confidence. It'll be directionally accurate, but we're 48 hours away from the game. This is going to move around a lot. We're seeing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on the DraftKings side at 12-2. We're seeing Tyrese Halliburton as your second most expensive guy at $11K. So Halliburton, $1,200 cheaper than Shai, and then no one else above 10K. J-Dub at 98, Siakam at 94, Chet at 8,800. Then you get down to Miles Turner at 8K, and then we start to talk about the gaps in salary. Now, I guess I should probably just get it out of the way right out of the gate. My expectation in this series is that the Thunder dog walk them. I don't really see any path outside of injury for Indiana to sniff success in this series. I think it's going to be largely uncompetitive. I've already bet the sweep. I understand the interest in 4-1, and I have no real issue with that. But I think they just run through them. You know, the line in the opener is 9, I believe. And it all just comes down to defense. The Pacers offense is great. I don't want to undersell it. Their season's been awesome. I don't want to undersell them, but I can only look at this matchup in one way. And, you know, the Pacers going up against the Knicks, that's not a defensive matchup that anybody's worried about. There's no defense there. Not as a team. Obviously, they have, some solid individual defenders. But there's no room to breathe for Indiana, because pretty much at all times, whoever has the ball for the Pacers is in a negative matchup. And I don't know what you could possibly do to save that. Frederick Ellis says, Indy may squeeze out Game 1. I mean, yeah, I may sleep with Sydney Sweeney tomorrow. They're 9-point underdogs. Like, we don't have to talk in these like hypotheticals. Yeah, they might win all 4 games and sweep them. But I'm not super interested in talking about those sorts of probabilities, because everything we're going to get here is just bad matchup after bad matchup. They may squeeze out one game, but, I just don't think it matters. I think the most interesting thing for this series is figuring out the defensive matchups and how we can get out in front of them to start the series. So the first thing that I want to do is take a look at the matchup data from the regular season games. Now, one of these games, Chet didn't play. That will be a pretty sizable difference here. But let's go look at the December 26th game. And let's take a look at some of the defensive matchups. Because for the most part, I think the OKC matchups are not all that shocking. So if we talk about Tyrese Halliburton, this one's just not going to change. At least I don't think so. When Lou Dort is on the floor, Tyrese Halliburton is going to be guarded by Lou Dort. And when he's not, it's going to be Cason Wallace. I don't expect this matchup to change all that much. It's just going to be a sea of these two dudes. Like, this is one there where I just don't really see anything. Now, reminder, again, no Chet for this game. Another matchup that I think is going to be doubly interesting is Miles Turner for two reasons. And this is the big one for this series. Sorry, let me scroll down. So in this game, you got a pretty steady amount of Hartenstein, and then, you got some Kenrich Williams, but J-Dub was the other one. You got to play this a little different with no Chet, but I think two things are going to be very relevant here. One, I do expect Isaiah Hartenstein to be the primary matchup on Miles Turner for most of this series when he's out there. And two, I expect to see more Isaiah Hartenstein in this series than we have in the previous series. This feels like a more of a double big series, and it certainly feels like more of an Isaiah Hartenstein series. I think OKC is just going to simply stop the Pacers from even getting to the rim. I think you're going to see attempts be significantly lower than they have been in their previous series, and I think their success at the rim is going to be significantly lower than what we've seen in previous series. But I don't think this matchup's going anywhere. And I think the minutes that we see on Hartenstein are going to look quite a bit different in this series. Let's not forget, Isaiah Hartenstein last year with the Knicks against the Pacers was really good. But, I mean, we've seen Hartenstein now 17, 16, 19, 27, 20, 17. Has not been playing a ton. In the middle of that Denver series, you see those big 30-minute chunks. I think we're more likely to see that 27, 28 range on Hartenstein now. And I'm feeling pretty damn good about it. Just out of curiosity, last year versus opponent against Indy, it doesn't show me the playoff stats. Why can't I do that? Why can't I show playoffs here? Well, we're going to pull up Hartenstein's game logs from that series last year. So that's going to be New York, Indy 2024 series. So that's going to be... When was the first game of that series? So that's going to be from May 6th to May 19th. Okay. Let's check out Hartenstein's numbers in that time. So we're going to go Knicks. That was May 6th to May 19th. Last year, obviously. When Isaiah Hartenstein was on the floor, He played 229 minutes in that series across 7 games last year. That's 32.7 minutes per game. I got to shrink this screen. Give me 1 second. There we go. Why is that all formatted dumb? Okay, I guess I need to move that. That's even more annoying. There we go. Much better. All right. Back to Hartenstein. Ooh, let me close this tab too. There we go. Now, they were negative 20. So I look at that in a very different way than I'm not super concerned with that plus minus for one main reason. The Pacers won the final game by 21. So a lot of that is in the eye of the beholder. Hartenstein, 17 of 30 from the field, made a 3, which I don't remember in any way. But what we want to look at is this. The Knicks scored 126 points per 100 possessions against them last year. That is a massive number. Now, obviously, this is going to go up, but we need to look into the details of why. So against the Pacers last year, the Pacers shot 42% from 3 in the situation where Isaiah Hartenstein was on the floor. I don't think this is going to be all that surprising to hear, but that's not going to hold up. Very different scenario for what is around Isaiah Hartenstein last year in comparison to what's around him this year. So we had a Knicks team and a Pacers team that both shot 42% from 3. Feels less than likely. But what I think this is really going to do, and this is what we're going to show on the screen right here. Let me pull that back down. Is going to show up right here. Pacers on the season, 29th in offensive rebounding. Whoops. Pacers on the season, 19th in defensive rebounding. Now, because of the way that these teams play, both huge transition teams, the more you want to be positive in transition in either direction, all of that is going to come with a direct link to how you want to rebound generally. But, and like, we all know that the Pacers are a transition team. The 29th ranked offensive rebounding team, I think this is a massive series for Isaiah Hartenstein on the glass for 2 reasons. One, just he's a much better rebounder than anything that exists for the Pacers in any sort of real way. 92nd percentile offensive rebounder, 95th percentile defensive rebounder. There aren't too many dudes that are better rebounders than Isaiah Hartenstein. So that seems great to me. The second reason is a knock-on effect to the matchup. I expect Oklahoma's defense to be exceptional. That should not be a take. We all know how good it is. I think when all is said and done, we're going to call this one. Now, people won't want to do it because, like, they're young and we don't know their names yet in the same way. We're going to look back at this and think this is the best defense we've ever seen. Now, it's going to get better next year, probably, but that's a conversation for a different day. If OKC's defense is as good as it seems, and it is, then Indiana's not going to be taking as good of shots. So their shot quality will go down. They'll be taking those shots more in the half court, and they'll be missing more of those shots in the half court. Not that Indiana's not a great half court offense, because they are, but harder defense, worse shots, more misses against a team that cannot get offensive rebounds. I think Isaiah Hartenstein is live to dominate the glass. Not to mention defensively stopping Indiana from even approximating what the rim looks like. So the first guy that I wanted to touch on here is Isaiah Hartenstein. he's a guy that I think is live to have a massive series because he's going to get used differently here than he did last time. The other matchups for Indiana individually are going to rotate. Siakam, for example. He's going to see a lot of Jalen Williams. He's also going to see a lot of Chet. Obviously, in this game, there was no Chet. But if we hop to the March 29th game, we could take a look at the defensive matchups there. And I think this will be slightly more telling because if we look at the matchups here, just for reference sake, Halliburton, giant chunk of Lou Dort, Pascal Siakam, very spread out. And I think that makes a lot of sense. That's a matchup that they're just going to rotate through. In particular, Caruso probably picks up a little bit more of that matchup. I like Caruso more in a matchup against Siakam than I do against Halliburton. Caruso tends to do better with guys with strength a little bit more than speed. Not surprising. Caruso not young anymore. Not old either, but you know what I mean. So I think Siakam sees a lot of different looks, which I also don't think is great for him because he's just going to never get comfortable. Now, I think the opposite side of this is the more interesting piece because we know that Indy is aggressive. We know that the pressure will be huge. They're going to pick you up full court. I think that's not going to be as prevalent in this series as it was against the Knicks. Because when you pressure the Knicks full court, you're really just trying to make Jalen Brunson's life significantly worse. In this case, if you're trying to pressure Shea up full court, I don't think it's going to matter because I think that everybody else that's on the floor is going to be able to handle it. In particular, if they get that ball in J-Dub's hands in those situations, I'm not sure they're going to be able to stop him in transition because I think he's going to have an advantageous matchup. But let's look through those matchups, shall we? The second game that they played, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's primary matchup was Andrew Nembhard. I don't believe that's going to go well, but they have to worry more about hiding people than anything else. Where does Andrew Nembhard rank from a foul perspective? We know what Nesmith is. On the season, Nembhard, wow, all 3 years of his career, 36 percentile, 36 percentile, 36 percentile foul rate. So can get a little grabby. But this is where it's going to be a problem because they don't have anybody that I think matches up well with Shai. Like, you're going to get aggressive defense out of Aaron Nesmith from time to time, but the trickle down in their defensive matchups is tough because OKC is going to find scabs to pick at. Because if that's Shai, well, then we look at J-Dub. He's going to get Nesmith. That's fine. What that ultimately does is set up what I think are pretty interesting matchups for some of these extra guys. But like, let's look at J-Dub in that second game. Got a bunch of Nesmith. I mean, this game was only a couple months ago. I don't want to read into that kind of stuff too much. But I am pretty excited to see what Indy tries to do in all of these different defensive matchups. There are a couple other spots that I think will be very interesting. Transition, for sure. This is another piece that I think will be very interesting. In terms of shot distribution, Indy's like really balanced in terms of getting to the rim, being in the mid-range, taking threes. I think this one in particular, their rim shooting, is in trouble. I just don't know how they're going to get there. And I think that's going to be the swing part of this series. And it's why we could see that 4-1 outcome. And it all comes down to this right here. The shots that Oklahoma City gives up. They were third in the regular season in terms of shots allowed at the rim, meaning they limited them almost more than anybody else. Only Golden State and Sacramento were ahead of them in terms of shots at the rim, which, think about it like this. Oklahoma City, third least amount of shots at the rim, number one in field goal percentage at the rim, which means that not only do they limit you from getting there, but they also stop you when you do. Unsurprisingly, Sacramento limits you when you get there, or limits you getting there. However, they don't stop shit. Oddly, Domantas Sabonis, not a great rim protector. And that's why you see a 5.3% expected, or 5.3% increase in rim percentage. OKC is just walling this one off. What they're willing to give up by doing that are threes. No team allowed more threes than Oklahoma City. And we saw that in previous series. They're willing to give those up. They're going to stop everybody from getting to the rim. They're going to rotate in other spots. There are there are situations where OKC is going to switch. I don't think it's going to be a ton of switching in this series. I think they're just going to play this a lot more straight, other than sending doubles at Halliburton to get the ball out of his hands, which I kind of expect. But they're going to allow threes. And it's all going to come down to how well does Indy make those threes on a closeout. My confidence isn't high, because facing OKC is going to be very different than facing the Knicks, than facing, even to a degree, Cleveland in that series. That's a series that had no Evan Mobley in one game, essentially no Darius Garland for half of it or more. So you're running low on defense at that point. That's the swing piece. If one of those games, those shots are just going to fall, and Indy has to win that game, because they are never, ever going to get to the rim. Speaking of never, ever getting to the rim, it is time for me to hit on the guy that I like the least in this series, and a guy that I think his minutes are going to disappear as it moves on. And that's this guy right here. I think this is an absolutely awful series for TJ McConnell. And I don't think he's going to be able to be out there for big stretches for two reasons. One, offensively, what he wants to do is going to not exist. And two, they are going to pick on him defensively every single possession that he is on the floor. And that's going to go very poorly for the Indiana Pacers. I greatly prefer Benedict Mathurin in this series to TJ McConnell, because TJ McConnell is going to find no success in the things that he tries to do offensively. Benedict Mathurin is going to go hard at the rim. I don't expect it to succeed all that frequently, because he is a wildly inconsistent player, but he has the ability to get there. And I think they're going to have to lean more on Mathurin and less on McConnell. And we could talk through why that is quickly. So if we'll pull up TJ McConnell here. TJ McConnell can't shoot worth shit. He takes 1-3 per 75 possessions. He clearly doesn't play 75 possessions. Call it half that. He might take a 3. If they played 5 games, TJ McConnell's probably taken 4 or 5. And let me be clear, they are going to let him take a 3 whenever they want. If TJ McConnell wants to shoot 3s in this series, he's going to have carte blanche to do it because they're not going to care. What TJ McConnell wants to do is get to the mid-range. That is 8.5% or 8.5 mid-range shots per 75 possessions. Not too many people take more in the mid-range. 97th percentile. And he wants to get to the rim. 80th percentile in rim attempts over the past 2 seasons. Here's the problem. TJ McConnell is 32 years old now. Prior to these years, he was a 60-something, 60-ish, 61% rim shooter. Had a big year last year out of nowhere. Back down to 59.9 here. That's 32nd percentile. So we're talking about a guy that desperately wants to dribble, penetrate, get into the rim, and either get up a shot or he's going to be passing back out. What is he supposed to do against the best rim protecting team in the league? He's going to get to the paint and have zilch, nada, nothing. He has no outlet at this point. And if they're cutting off everything that he can do offensively, now you have a guy that provides no shooting as a guard and really doesn't provide much else. And then defensively, there's not a soul out there where he's going to be in a positive matchup because he's going to get put into every action and he's going to get beat like a drum. Look, is he scrappy or whatever we want to say? Yes. He's also, based on dunks and threes, 6'2", 190 pounds. That's not a recipe for defensive success. So I think this is a very bad series for TJ McConnell. Because the things that he does are not things that OKC does. TJ McConnell, big time steal guy. He's a pest. He's going to get into passing lanes. He's going to be an irritant. 95th percentile, 2.4 steals per 75 possessions. You know what the Oklahoma City Thunder do on offense? Here's the turnover rate. Number 1 in the league. No team turned the ball over less this season than the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're almost a full percentage point ahead of Boston and a full percentage point ahead of Indy. Everything that TJ McConnell does well is a strength for the Indy defense. I'm not sure he's long for this series. I actually think that there's a decent chance that these are the final 4 or 5 games that TJ McConnell ever plays for the Indiana Pacers. I think that he is going to get shipped out this offseason. But he's a guy I don't like. He's a guy I really don't like. Benedict Mathurin, on the other hand, it's not that I like him. I just think he's going to be afforded opportunities that kind of have to happen. Because he's another guy that wants to get into the mid-range, wants to get to the rim, shoots a little bit better this season than TJ McConnell at the rim, but he's also 6'7", 210. We're bringing a lot different size. And if we really want to talk about it, it's a guy that likes to draw some fouls. Now, they're not exactly a foul team, but Benedict Mathurin, over his 3 years so far, 99th percentile in drawing shooting fouls, 96th percentile in drawing shooting fouls, and 100th percentile in drawing shooting fouls. Not to mention 91st percentile in getting fouled elsewhere. The only thing he doesn't do well is finish on contact. Only a 37th percentile in terms of getting an and one. But this guy is going to go to the rack, and I think he's going to find a lot more success on that dribble penetration than TJ McConnell is finding. And that's why I think that we're going to see potentially more of Mathurin and less of McConnell. Unfortunately for us, Mathurin is already kind of looking like the best possible value because he's only 3K. TJ McConnell sitting here at 4K as, at least in ownership right now, don't read into this, the second highest value option. I can't wait to run away from this when we get to the game on Thursday. The only concern that I have is that I am making these decisions too early. And I've seen it happen in some of the previous series where the things I think they're going to do don't happen immediately. They happen a game and a half to 2 games afterwards. And I'm ultimately just out in front of it too quick. I don't think Rick Carlisle is going to mess around too much. There's no, this, like, you don't want to treat this like a prize fight and find your distance in the first round. I think you got to do what you need to do right out of the gate. Now, there's a couple other names on this list that I think we could, take an overarching look at, because I don't have much to say about the guys that are clearly going to be out there. I think this is a much, 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 much better series for Isaiah Joe. Now I think they can afford to give up a little defense for a little bit more offense. So I would not be surprised at all to see Isaiah Joe see a little bit of extra time. It's the real swing piece for me is right here. Do they go back to to Jalen Williams with a Y rather at the flat 1K, or is it Kenrich? Because I think they can do either one of those things, especially when Miles Turner is off the floor. I think that I'm leaning more towards either Kenrich or no big at all, which in this case would be like Jalen Williams without the Y. Because I don't think they're going to care in any way if Tony Bradley or Thomas Bryant are on the floor. Like, we saw what Oklahoma City's defense was able to be during the regular season when either Chet or Hartenstein were out and they went to that double or the full small lineup. I think you could do that pretty easily against Indy when Miles Turner's not on the floor. Because you just simply, when push comes to shove, you just simply don't care about Thomas Bryant or Tony Bradley because they're not good. And there are no Tony Bradleys or Thomas Bryants on OKC. So whoever ends up being the primary, third big, I don't have a lean on who it is. But I think one of those two guys are very interesting decision points when looking for value on Thursday. This could also be a little bit more of an Aaron Wiggins series, who's sitting there at the flat 1K. I don't have a great feel there. I do think this is a great series for Cason Wallace. Just from a defensive standpoint, I think he's going to be out there a lot, falling into whatever matchup they need, whether that's Halliburton, whether that's Nembhard. I think he'll rotate through between those guys and see some success. I really don't like this for Obi Toppin. That's another sore that OKC is just going to pick at and pick at and pick at. And I'm not entirely sure what he's going to provide. Like, we're talking about another guy that is desperately going to want to get to the rim. He's going to meet significantly more resistance there than he did in this Knicks series. They are going to, like, this is the interesting part right here. Obi Toppin took 7 threes per 75 possessions this year, shot 36.5%, shot 40 last year. He's turned himself into like a solid 3-point shooter. He's going to get them today, or not today, on Thursday and for the rest of the series. He's a guy that I think has the opportunity to have like really outlier games. Like, do I think that, like, OKC wants Obi Toppin to be on the floor, but the way they play defense, if the Pacers are able to get any sort of dribble penetration, the volume of threes that Obi Toppin is able to acquire, I think is probably is higher in this series than it would have been in other series, because they're willing to give that up and they're willing to let them shoot it. The question is, can Obi Toppin take advantage of it? My guess is likely no. But this is a guy that's going to see increased volume because of the way Oklahoma City plays defense. Do I think Indy re-signs Turner? I mean, they have to. How they do that will be interesting. They've got some decisions they need to make. Let's take a look here. So you've got Miles Turner, fully unrestricted free agent. Now, good news is they can offer him whatever they want, for being technical. They have full bird rights. They can offer him more money than anybody else. However, it all comes down to one question and one question only. It's the only question that matters. And this is the question right here. The Indiana Pacers have spent $9 million since 2002 in luxury tax payments. The Indiana Pacers have not paid $1 of luxury tax since 2005. That is 20 years ago. I am 40 years old right now. They have not paid the luxury tax in 20 years. Just so that you guys can understand what that means. Because I think this is a very interesting way to frame this. The 2005 Indiana Pacers, the guy that played the most minutes for that team was Fred Jones. And I am quite confident that most of chat doesn't know who the hell that is. The guy that played the second most minutes on the Indiana Pacers, the last time they paid the luxury tax, was Reggie Miller. He was 39. They have not paid the luxury tax since Reggie Miller was 39 years old and still on the Pacers. So, are they willing to pay the luxury tax next year since they made a finals run? That changes the equation a little bit. I don't know the answer, but we have to assume they're not going to pay it. And if that's the case, they're going to have to make some real decisions. Because right now, Miles Turner is on a $20 million expiring. And there's zero chance that you can bring Miles Turner back for $20 million. Now, you can give him the max raises. It's not going to look like 20 in a couple years. But if they bring him back, something here needs to go. Whether that's Toppin, whether that's McConnell, they've got a real big decision to make on Benedict Mathurin because he is extension eligible. Fred Jones, the barnacle of the cornfield. So for them to bring back Miles Turner, they're going to have to make some real decisions. And I don't know what they want to do. I can do that, can't I? Salaries, Indiana. Can I? I can. Okay. I mean, so we can re-sign Turner 4 years, $120 million. 4 years, 100. I mean, he's not going to get that. But, I mean, something in that neighborhood with raises feels pretty likely. I mean, let's say they do that. Then you've got Turner on $30 million next year. What is the tax projected for? 2025, 26 projected luxury tax. Okay, so the tax is expected to be 187.9. So at 187.9, if they just bring back, if they address nothing else and just bring back Turner on about 30 million next year, they're already $6 million over the tax. So as I see it, I think one of Toppin or McConnell has to be gone. I think Benedict Mathurin could potentially be gone. Because the big problem, if you guys see it right here, is that Andrew Nembhard is jumping up from his $2 million salary from this year up to a still underpaid 18 next year. So that's the tricky part. They can't go over 189. They don't want to go over $190 million in total salary next year. And if they don't bring back Miles Turner, then their entire run is done. If they don't have Miles Turner next year, we could ignore the Indiana Pacers next year. That's a really great thing for Miles Turner, because he could get a bag. He can get a real bag. The only downside for Turner is that there's not teams with cap room. Now, if I'm a particular team that has some cap room, like the Detroit Pistons, I might think about swapping out Jalen Duren and throwing a bag at Miles Turner. Because this is the only team that's going to be flashing any cash in free agency. Nobody else has it. So we'll see. Run the bases. He doesn't really have leverage. I'd say that's untrue. He has internal leverage, but he doesn't really have any external leverage. Larry, they might. They certainly could. I'm not entirely sure that I think they do. But they could. The question is, do they want to? I mean, look, I think it's obvious to me that they should be paying the tax next year. There's no impact. It's just financial. You're not freezing picks. We're not talking about second apron. It's not a limiting factor to them. They're not going to be bumping up against aprons and costing themselves anything. They have the ability to do this and eat a year of salary. They just do. So they should. At least for next year, I think it's a really bad look if they don't pay the tax. Or look, I don't want to say it like that. I think it's a bad look if they don't pay the tax, assuming they don't make other moves to also avoid the tax while also making their team better. Like, they're a great front office. Kevin Pritchard's great on the margins. It wouldn't surprise me in any other way if they could get out and still handle their business. Does Turner fit on the Warriors? He fits everywhere. There aren't too many centers that fit anywhere like Turner does. There's no real way to get him to the Warriors, though. We got to remember, nobody has money. The only way that anybody's getting anywhere this offseason is through a sign and trade. And I can't think of a single thing that the Pacers would want back from Golden State. But like, there's no cap space available anywhere outside of Detroit. And like, technically Brooklyn, but you know, doesn't matter much. So that's sort of the problem, is Miles Turner just doesn't really have anywhere else to go to get an offer. Like, obviously the Lakers would give up anything they could to be able to pull that off. They just can't, I don't think. Nobody wants Rui Hachimura. Do you guys have any questions about the series? Anything you guys want me to look at? I got nothing but time here. Anything I haven't talked about that you are interested in any way? I'll hit on whatever you got. No, we don't have WNBA projections. Sam Shepard. You mean Ben Shepard, Cookie? Sam Shepard is an actor. Have I tried the new flavors of Nerd Clusters? What color, Josh? I've had the blue bag, the red and the green. Did they drop new ones? Yes, Cookie, I know that you mean, I know who you mean. You don't know who you mean. Larry, playoffs, enjoying a little bit of the devil's lettuce, watching basketball games at like 11 o'clock at night. I've been candying. Josh, I think I've had them all. I think there are 3 different flavors. I think I've had them all. I do prefer the blue more than anything else. They're more tart. I'm a tart guy. Shouldn't say that out loud like that. Ben Shepard in this series, I don't really have much of a take. He's not any good. They might run out of bodies, but he's terrible. So, Cookie, that was not autocorrect. That didn't autocorrect Ben into Sam. What are you doing? Don't lie. I don't have a take. Look, he's going to be out there. They don't have a choice. especially now with Jarris Walker out. I guess that's one thing we haven't talked about. Jarris Walker injured his ankle in the final game against the Knicks. He's going to be out at least for game 1 and 2. He's irrelevant in this series, whether he was healthy or not. A rookie rolling into OKC's defensive assignments is going to fuck up nonstop. So Ben Shepherd's going to be out there. He's going to play some sort of, 12 to 18 minutes, generally speaking. He's got to make, the open threes that he's afforded to take. Like, they're never going to guard him. He's awful at shooting and doesn't look for it. At least not enough, but 34% from 3 this year, 31 last year, and you best believe Ben Shepherd is getting slightly better looks than anybody else. So, look, he's going to be out there, but he's awful. He'll get shots, that's for sure. Bryant Bradley takes. I assume they go back to Thomas Bryant. It's a terrible spot for him. He's in a non-advantageous matchup, no matter who's out there, whether it's Chet, whether it's Hartenstein, whether it's both of them, whether it's neither of them, honestly. Thomas Bryant's not better than any center that will play center for the Thunder. I don't care if it's Kenrich. I don't care if it's Jalen Williams with a Y. Doesn't really matter who's out there. Thomas Bryant will be an afterthought. Much like we saw, though, in Game 6, Thomas Bryant's going to get some corner threes to take. They went in Game 6, and he find his form, but they're going to let him shoot that shit whenever he wants. But I assume it's Thomas Bryant over Tony Bradley at this point. Run the bases. I don't. Jarris Walker is an afterthought. I mean, he's totally irrelevant for the first 2 games because he's 100% not playing. But, second-year dudes that have been dog shit their entire career are probably not finding their form in the finals against the best defense ever. He's just not going to, that dude's never seen anything like this. You could put him out there against the Knicks because it's just not the same defense. You put him out there against OKC, he's never seen basketball like that before. Ever. Not even close. There's never been a game that Jarris Walker has played in his life that would be like what Game 3 would be like if he were able to play. He'd be in the deep end with lead weights on his feet. Josh, I think it's going to be more of the 2 bigs rather than less, because I think that you get more Hartenstein in this series naturally, and Chet. Like, you just don't ever take him off the floor. This is a much bigger series for the 2 bigs. It's not even that's not even really the way that we should ask the question. Is this a Hartenstein series or not? Because Chet is the 3rd best player or 2nd best player on the team, depending on how you want to look at it. He's not losing anything from a playing time perspective. So it's really the question of, do you think Hartenstein gets more run than he did before? I think it's unequivocally more for this series. Chet just doesn't go anywhere because he's a borderline all-NBA player. I'm fading Halliburton hard. Yeah, I'm not. I think this is going to be a real eye-opening series for Tyrese Halliburton. I love the dude. He's awesome. It's fun. He is going to be unhappy every minute of the game because someone's going to be in his pocket constantly. Like, look, Nembhard did a solid job. I still think that Brunson is happy to get whatever shot he can get against him. And the pressure was a lot. Nembhard becomes Dort. Then there's Wallace. Then there's Caruso. Shea on a switch. Getting into the bigs. You just don't find any breathing room. No matter where he goes, it's a plus defender in his pocket. It's a really, really, really bad time for Halliburton. Look, I hope it's not. There's a huge difference between what I think is going to happen and what I would like to see. This could be a coming out party for Tyrese Halliburton, and we look at it like, well, they had Halliburton. The other guys couldn't get it done against the defense. But I think they're going to do everything they can to get the ball out of Tyrese Halliburton's hands. I think whenever Halliburton has it, I think you're going to see blitzes and rotations to get it out of his hands, and then they're going to play everything else like pretty straight. Because this doesn't strike me as a series that Oklahoma City is going to switch a lot. I think that plays more into Indy's hands because they're all about action, movement. And when you're switching, you're just kind of allowing them to continue to do the things that they want to do. I think Oklahoma's defense is strong enough that they can play most of this straight up and just worry about their health on the back end. So, Dwayne, okay, that's an interesting question. Do I think that OKC blows them out of the water? Yes and no. This is the problematic part for it. Because we talk about blowouts a lot, and I don't think they get talked about in the ways that they could happen. Yes. Do I expect Oklahoma City to like have an easy time against the Pacers? Easy is not the right word, but like I expect them to just be more successful. The blowout can happen the reverse way, which isn't Oklahoma City is running away from them. It's that Indy can't score. So instead of a blowout thinking like, oh, it's 130 to 110, I think it's more likely to be 110 to 90. I think the blowouts happen more when Indy can't keep up. And we're not looking at an influx of DFS scoring. We're looking at a limitation of the Pacers scoring. Josh, I wouldn't necessarily call it a weakness. I think it's a choice. They are willing to give up. Like their goal is to give those shots up because of how good their defense is at closing out. Great work there, Steven. Great work. Because, yeah, we can look at OKC, at least from the regular season. That's the one. The way they play defense is they're going to allow corner threes. Their entire goal is to stop you from getting to the rim and allow, in this case, it's Obi Toppin, Thomas Bryant. I mean, here are your corner three guys. Oh, wrong team. These are the guys that I think could see that benefit. Ben Shepherd, 42% of his shot attempts were corner threes. They're going to let him take whatever he wants. Thomas Bryant. In terms of guys that like legitimately played, Ben Shepherd, Thomas Bryant, Obi Toppin. Yeah, if I'm Oklahoma City, I'm like, yeah, those guys can shoot whenever the hell they want. If the best thing that Indy can create are the allowed corner threes from the Thunder, to the guys that take the most corner threes from this team, Ben Shepherd, Thomas Bryant, Obi Toppin. Next up is Aaron Nesmith. That's probably not one you like want to take a lot, but he'll be there. You're letting Obi Toppin, Ben Shepherd, and Thomas Bryant shoot whatever they want. Whatever they want. You'll give up those shots all day. And I don't like that's. I think that play like Oklahoma City, that's the game plan. They want that to happen. And it's part of the reason why I find someone like Obi Toppin as interesting as I do, because while I think he sucks in terms of what you need here in the playoffs, his particular skill set and the way he's going to play is at least going to give him opportunity. And that's all that we could really worry about now. That's an hour first look, bouncing through some matchups. We will be back on Thursday morning for a real NBA strategy show, breaking down DraftKings, breaking down FanDuel. We'll have a lot more data at that point in time. But what I need you guys to do now is hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. We've got Lofty coming up right now for the MLB strategy show. You don't want to miss that one. He's going to be breaking down today's monster baseball slate. Spags is back for best ball at 3 p.m. And because I'm dumb and forgot about it, I got a promo for you guys, so I hope you haven't left yet. 50% off the Portfolio EV tool for the next week using the promo code DYNASTY. Head to oddshopper.com, take a market-based approach to beating the books. Tons of bets available out there right now. You guys can see me scrolling through it. Look at all the available stuff that you have out there. These are all OddsShopper ratings greater than 1. You can take a market-based approach to beating the books, and you can come in for 50% off as we celebrate the start of the Oklahoma City dynasty. This is championship number 1, multiple to come, barring health. I want you guys to take advantage of it right now. Come in, drop your bets. I've got a thread on Twitter every single day with the best promos and boosts and anything I could find at all the sports books. Follow along, use this OddsShopper, that is, and the Portfolio EV tool to your advantage. Take those bets, win some money, build out a bit of a bankroll. The link is in the description. The promo code is Dynasty. 50% off a week of the Portfolio EV tool. Guys, thank you for being here. It's been a fun show. I love this more than anything. By the way, get ready for playback on Thursday. I'm doing the whole game for the whole series. Now, when it's the third quarter and somebody's up by 30, you might see me dip. You're getting playback, full finals games, every single game we have. I'm not missing a single second. And I hope you guys are excited to do that and watch the games along with me. For now, guys, I need you guys to do me the biggest favor in the world. It's very simple. Go tell Laffy I said hi.